Alright guys, so today I have the Footstep video that I promised where I'm going to show you a setting that I found that for me, once I changed, I suddenly started hearing footsteps again. Hopefully this works for you like it did for me. I'm also going to go over some of my other audio settings, and then at the end of the video, I'm also going to go over a sort of if all else fails bonus tip that might help that sort of worked for me in the past. Now this video took longer to make than I wanted because come to find out, Call of Duty added another options file called options.3.codhq. It's identical to options.3.cod22, so I had to go back in and make sure the settings were the same in both files, which they weren't, and then I had to test the audio to see if there was a difference. Good news, this might explain why my audio was acting weird this week, but I'll talk more about that later. Now, I've had issues with footsteps going all the way back to Verdansk, and since it's gotten progressively worse, up until the recent Season 2 Reloaded update, I pretty much had no footsteps at all. Players could just full tack sprint right up behind me, assassinate me, and I wouldn't hear a thing. According to the Call of Duty devs, it was the way the audio was mixed. It was causing the footstep audio files to end up missing for certain PC players, and supposedly they put a patch out for it in the mid-season update. Well, after the update, I noticed I had a little bit better footstep audio, but after a few days, it just completely reverted, and it was like the footstep audio was completely gone again. Now, there's been countless times since Caldera where I would change the in-game audio settings, find a combination that I like, and then a few days later, the footstep audio would just completely change. It finally got to the point where I thought maybe people were right and it's skill-based. It just didn't make sense why every few days the audio kept changing, even though my settings always stayed the same. Well, after spending a couple hours of yet again testing different combinations, I finally stumbled upon a setting in the game files called Audio Mix that lets you assign a value from 0 to 9, and once I changed that setting, the footstep audio became much more noticeable. To get to this setting, you want to click the yellow folder at the bottom of your desktop, go to where it says Documents and click on it, find the folder that says Call of Duty, and then click on the folder that says Players. Once inside, you want to find where it says options.3.cod22 or options.3.codhq, and then you want to open it up using Notepad or something similar. And then if you do have options.3.codhq, that's the new settings file that Call of Duty recently added, and if you see that you have both of them, just make sure the settings are exactly the same in both. And then anytime you make changes in either one of them, just make sure you remember that after each time you have to go up to where it says File and then click Save. Now, once inside, you're going to find a page similar to this. You're going to see that the audio mix is the first setting on the top. Now, when I first saw this setting, I assumed it was the same thing from the options menu because they're both called audio mix. But in here, I noticed they let you set a value from 0 to 9, giving you 10 different options to choose from. And in the options menu, you only have 6 options to choose from. Now, since I wasn't hearing footsteps as it was, I figured I had nothing to lose and I decided to just start experimenting. Originally, the value that was set in between the parentheses for me was 4. I decided to change it to an 8, went back into the game and I didn't really notice much of a difference. So I went back into the settings, this time changed it to a 1, went back into the game, and to my surprise, I found that I could finally hear footsteps again. The first thing I noticed that my own footsteps were even louder. Before I messed with this setting, my own footsteps were really low and soft, but now I can actually hear myself running, and then eventually I found that I could hear everybody else as well. Now, after that, I went a whole week with the audio being fine. I do have to say though, Monday when I got on, I noticed it changed again. I don't think it had anything to do with the audio mix setting this time. I noticed that when I changed between the Windows default and stereo setting in the game options, the sound wasn't changing at all when I switched between them, and the sound should be completely different when you switch between those two settings, and it was almost like it was stuck in stereo mode. The same thing was supposedly happening before they put out the patch. What ended up fixing it for me was out of frustration. I just started spamming back and forth between the two settings, and then I went back into the game and I noticed my audio was back. Now, I don't know if this will work for you, but it's worth a try, especially if the other setting doesn't help. You can also try Scan and Repair in Battle.net or its equivalent on Steam. I would just experiment with different values in the options folder, see if you can find a value that works, or if worse comes to worse, you might want to try uninstalling and reinstalling the game, and it might fix the issue if it's stuck in stereo mode. Now, I'm going to go over some of my other sound settings, both Windows and in-game. Hopefully this helps you out, and then I'm also going to give you that little bonus tip I talked about at the end if all else fails. Now, here are my in-game audio settings. I use home theater because it's the best at lowering the obnoxiously loud gunshots and airstrikes while still keeping the footstep audio at a normal level, if there is such a thing in this game. Now, this doesn't change when I mess with the other audio mix in the game files. It stays on whatever I set it, and I can always tell I'm still on home theater, regardless of whatever I set in the options folder. That's what sort of makes me think they're two different settings. I could be wrong, but either way, you're getting 10 options in the folder and only 6 here. master volume 100, music 0, dialogue 50, effect 100, and then voice chat 50. For this game sound device setting, it's obviously going to be whatever you listen to the game with. If you use something like the SteelSeries program that's specifically designed for Footsteps that I've previously made a video about, make sure the program is selected here. I haven't used it in a while because it doesn't really work with my Go XLR, but if you're interested, I'll link the video at the end. I recommend you give it a shot. It does help with the Footsteps. Speaker output, you want Windows default. This is very important for the Windows enhancement settings I'm going to show you next. Stereo could be the reason you're not hearing footsteps, and like I said before, it could be stuck in stereo mode, and that's why you're not hearing them as well. Now for the Windows settings, you want to go down to the little speaker icon, right click and go to sound settings. If you're on Windows 11 like me, you want to go all the way to the bottom where it says more sound settings. Click it and a page like this should come up. If you're on Windows 10, then you should already be here. Find the option you listen to your game with, make sure it's set to default device, and then right click on it and go down to properties. Next, you want to go to levels and make sure it's set to 100, both the left and right channels, and then you want to go over to enhancements. Now these two settings have helped quite a bit with the Footsteps. The first one is low frequency protection. This helps with those ear-piercing gunshots. With it selected, you want to go to settings, and then I have the cutoff at 80 Hertz. It was default for me. This definitely helps lower other noises outside of the footstep frequency. Next, you want to make sure these two are unchecked, especially virtual sound. For some reason, this lowers the footsteps for me. Lastly, you want to check loudness equalization. Then you want to go down and set the release time to short. For some reason, loudness equalization makes the footsteps a lot more noticeable. It raises the lower noises and it lowers the higher noises. I found that for me, both these two settings help out quite a bit with the game sounds. I'm on Astro A40s with a mix amp and a Go XLR, so my sounds will be slightly different than yours, but most videos I've seen at least recommend loudness equalization. Under advanced, you want to go to 24-bit 48,000 Hertz studio quality, not DVD. And then lastly, under spatial sound, I have it off. I tried Sonic for Windows and it just made it worse. Unless you're using something specific, I just keep it off. Once you're done, just hit apply and then okay. Now the last thing I want to show you is the bonus tip if all else fails. In the in-game options under audio, you can scroll all the way down to a place where it says mono audio. Now what I'm about to suggest is just a last resort if you have no footsteps at all and everything else failed. Ordinarily, you want to make sure this setting is turned off. If you have no footstep audio, the first thing you should do is actually scroll down here and make sure it's off. If for some reason, if it's on, turn it off, jump into a game and see if there's a difference. But if it's off and you're still having no luck with the other settings, you can try switching it on and then go down right below it to mono amount and start out around maybe 20%. Load into a game and then just start adjusting it from there. See how 20 sounds and then maybe go up to 30 and then just start messing around with it. See if you notice a difference. You might find it sounds a little bit better. The reason I'm telling you to do this is because a couple months ago I had no footsteps at all. I turned this on, set the amount to a lower number, and for some reason it made the footsteps stand out a little bit. It was a lot better than having no footsteps at all. Now in all reality, this shouldn't have worked because it's supposed to combine the left and right channel, but for some reason it almost felt like it had the opposite effect and it enhanced the left and right audio. I actually had someone comment on a previous video telling me to try the mono setting, how it works for them whenever the audio changes. They said they were having the same problem with it switching every few days, and this helps. Now when this person wrote this comment, they didn't know that I was having this problem or that I actually tried that setting too, so I found it curious that we both found this setting works. Like I said before, first and foremost, make sure this is off, but if you tried all the other settings and all else fails, give it a shot, it might work. If it does work and then eventually it goes out again, just make sure you remember to come in here and turn it back off. It's a shame we have to go through this constantly having to switch settings. This is something that should be automatic. Hopefully they get their act together and we see some major changes soon. And I hope this video helps because I know it's absolutely unplayable without footstep audio. This game is just too random and chaotic not to have them. If you found this video helpful, drop a like, follow me over on Twitter to stay up to date on everything Warzone 2, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more short, straight to the point videos like this. I'll catch you next time, and if not, kick rocks. Peace.
Kick rocks, biatch!